Hey everybody, welcome in. I know I've talked about it before. I worked in healthcare about 30 years almost now. I started as a CNA in 1997, became an LPN in 2001, became an RN in 2013, and in most of those years I spent my time working in long-term care. So then I transitioned to hospice. But here's what happens when you work in healthcare so long. You just can't help noticing certain things, and there are certain things that you can never unlearn after this many years, almost 30 years in nursing. There's just so many things that you can't unlearn. Before I go any further, I would just like to say that everything that I say here is just my experience, my opinion. It doesn't replace the advice of an MD. Take what resonates with you, leave what doesn't, as the psychics say. And if you like what you see here, then like, subscribe, and follow for more, and share if you think it'll help somebody else. So what are the things that I can never unlearn after almost 30 years? I am looking at your veins. Yes, I am. I am wondering if I can hit that. I can't help it. When I see strangers in public, I sometimes catch myself looking at my husband's arm. If his veins are noticeable, I am thinking, can I stick that? Can I get that and get a flash? I'm absolutely looking at that. And you could be telling me something that's really personal to you. Maybe we're having a good conversation, but I am going to notice your veins. And I really can't help it. Tell me I'm not the only one, right? I think we all do that as nurses. That is the feat. I want to hit that vein. The next thing is, I can't help it. I'm always assessing people. I can't leave the nurse in the office at the door when I leave work. If somebody looks pale, if they're sweaty, if their breathing has changed, my brain is looking at it. If somebody is unsteady on their feet, I'm wondering if they're going to fall. If their feet are swollen, I'm wondering if they took their Lasix today. I'm wondering if they're on Lasix. I'm not trying to diagnose people. It's just that my brain refuses to stop looking for those symptoms. And I think I know I'm probably not alone in this. After you've been in healthcare so long, I think it's just like any other part of your routine. It's become a part of who you are. How about certain smells? There are certain smells that you know what they are when you walk in the room. And what I'm going to start with is C. diff. If you've been a nurse for any amount of time, you know what C. diff is, you know what it smells like, and you know when you're coming upon it. It's not my fault. If you have a GI bleed and you've used the bathroom, I may know you have a GI bleed before you know you have a GI bleed because of the smell. Also, UTIs. As nurses, as healthcare workers, I think we get a strong sense of what a UTI smells like, of what a certain UTI smells like, just because we've treated so many of them over the years, right? You're like, oh, yep, that's a UTI. And sometimes you can even name the bacteria if you've been doing this long enough, right? Pseudomonas, Proteus. Those are things that you can't forget. How about those conversations that we have at lunch that we shouldn't be having, as a side note? I think as nurses sometimes too, things that we can't unlearn is that not everybody is a nurse and not everybody wants to have that conversation at the lunch table. In line with knowing certain smells, I think I just know way too much about urine and feces. Way too much about poop and pee. And, I'm looking at the color, the smell, the amount. I can't help but notice that, even in my own home. If you didn't flush, I'm maybe assessing it. I can't help it. There is no reason for me to utilize this in my home life, but some things you can't leave them at the bedside, I want to say that I hear things differently now too. If somebody's breathing, if they're coughing, if they're not breathing, if they're breathing too still. These are the types of things that trigger my brain to pay attention. I don't mean to pay that close of attention to everyone, but even my husband could probably tell you, and his mother, if she could speak English, she would tell you, I'm always looking at her, listening to him, wondering what is really going on in my house. And it happens in public too. If I'm sitting beside somebody and somebody's wheezing, I'm wondering, okay? I'm wondering. And hearing the phrase, they're not just right. They're just not right. They're just not right. That means something to me, just hearing that. Because it's really amazing how fast something can go from stable to not okay. So the things that happen in years and years of healthcare is that you begin to recognize patterns in people and when things are changing and when things are beginning to tank. You just can't help but notice those things. It's just become ingrained in you. You recognize if a person is becoming more lethargic, if they are having slurred speech, if you notice a change in their face. I think we are looking for patterns in people even when we don't mean to be in public. And I think that hearing the words, "she's just not right," often our CNAs will tell us that phrase, and it really triggers you to listen because your CNA is often the first person that tells you that. So hearing that something's just off with them today, they're just not right, they're just not themselves, that triggers your brain to start really looking for something. And it's just something you can't unlearn after this many years in healthcare. And how about quiet? Quiet doesn't always mean that something's good, right? So in healthcare, when you're at work, if somebody's been noisy and now they're all of a sudden quiet, you're concerned. You're going to check on them because maybe something is wrong. If loud is their normal and now they're quiet, it's just like with your kids, right? If your kids are being too quiet, they're into something. Something's not right. And so you're going to check on it. And, the smallest change matters. A change from baseline can make a big difference, and catching it earlier makes a difference. So I think that that's one of the things that we can't simply unlearn as nurses. Another thing is, I really don't watch too many medical shows. Maybe when I was younger and I was first in healthcare, I would spend some time watching some medical shows, and I will admit there are some that I really love, and some of it is very humorous. But sometimes you'll watch a medical show and you'll find yourself criticizing what is not correct. What do you notice when you watch a medical show? Are you drawn into the storyline? Are you crying because it's sad? Or are you like, "Ah, man, that is not right. We do not do CPR that way. That is not correct." Because I will tell you that when I watch a medical show, I might ruin it for other people that are watching it with me, because I absolutely say, "I would never start an IV like that. I would never give a shot with that needle. I would never put a shot in that part of the body." I'm just saying. I think as healthcare workers, whenever we are doing something for so many years, that we also know when it's not being done correct, and we will criticize. I don't mean to. Okay, here's the next thing. What's your kryptonite? Every nurse has something that grosses them out. Every nurse has the one thing that they can't do. There are so many things I can do as a nurse that do not gross me out. I can handle vomit, feces, urine, blood. I can handle any of that. Mucus. It's mucus for me. It's a no. If it's coming out of somebody's nose or out of their lungs and it is slimy, that is my kryptonite. I think all nurses have their very own kryptonite. So that is the thing that will take me out and make me weak in my knees. What's the thing that you can't stand that makes you not be able to do your job? I mean, maybe some nurses don't have a weakness, but most of us have one thing that we just can't do. And for me, it's the mucus. It is suction machines, it is trachs, it is anything to do with mucus. I don't know why, but that, even dried mucus, boogers, I can't do it. I don't know why, but I can't. It hits the gag reflex every time. How about the word fine? And that's not a clinical finding. Patients will tell you, "I'm fine." Nurses will tell you, "I'm fine." Fine is not correct. You can clearly see that someone is not fine. So nurses say, "I'm fine" when we're running on hours of running and no sleep and caffeine. And we're not fine, but we'll say the word fine. So patients will say it whenever they've been feeling like crap all day. They'll tell you, "I'm fine." And then their son, daughter, husband, wife will say, "Mom, you are not fine. You told me that your stomach was hurting all day. You didn't sleep good all night." So really, we've learned to overlook that word, I think. As nurses, we just, we move past fine and have to dig a little bit deeper sometimes. How about things that aren't funny, that you can't unlearn? I'll tell you what, just like I said a while ago, a person can go from stable to crashing very quickly. And I think that is something that we have learned over years and years of nursing, is that just because a person looks fine doesn't mean that they're not about to tank on you. So it's really important that you're checking those vitals and looking at those symptoms. And what's something that I also didn't know that I can't unlearn now? Dying looks nothing like it does on television. It doesn't. You know when somebody looks like they're about to die. You can tell the color, you can tell the breathing pattern. And I find myself seeing that in people out in public when they have modeling present or changes in skin color, tone, and breathing, and maybe they are walking around right now and then you hear that they passed. So I think that that's something that I have not been able to unlearn. And I've learned that illness can bring out a closeness in families that they've never experienced before. It can bring them together, or it can break what's already been breaking. It can bring out the real ugliness at the end of life. That is something that I've seen time and time again, is that death can either bring people together or it can bring out the ugly in people. And I've learned that some of the things that I've done that were important had absolutely nothing to do with medication. You know, your time is valuable as a nurse. Your presence is valuable as a nurse, and sometimes the medical interventions that we do are not the things that are making the change for our patients. And I think that that's a big thing that I've learned from being a nurse. So after almost 30 years in nursing, I'm never going to stop looking at the veins, never going to stop assessing people, but I'm also not going to unlearn the things that I've learned about people. The things that make people stronger, the things that bring people together, the things that break people. And I think it changes the way that you see bodies and illness and death. And I don't think I can ever unlearn that. What's something that you've learned in healthcare that you just can't walk away from when you leave the bedside? What's something that stands out to you? Is it similar to what I said, or is it something different? I'd love to hear about it in the comments and talk about it more. And if you like what you see here, then I ask that you like, subscribe, and follow for more. And I thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.